Welcome to another episode of So What Is Your Point? Today, Steve and I are talking about organizing a presentation. And we all have to do presentations from time to time. So here are some great tips for making better presentations and getting them organized more quickly and effectively.
Great, Roger. When we look at doing a presentation, oftentimes we want to focus in on our material, our content. But I think there's some other things that you need to consider before you actually go into your content. So for instance, if you can speak, you can influence. If you can influence, you can change lives. If you're going to make a presentation, you want to not just speak, but you want to influence and change someone's life and impact them in a positive way. That really doesn't happen as often as speakers think it happens. So for every presentation, there are three parts. Want to guess what those three parts are?
Beginning, middle, and end.
You're right. So you're going to start your talk, you're going to give your content, you're going to end your talk. Most people just blow all the smithereens. They just don't understand how to prepare a talk. So the thing we want to consider is, where do we want to start? And the surprising thing is, you don't start with your content and you don't start with your beginning. You want to ask yourself, what do you want your audience to do as a result of your presentation? If you're doing a sales presentation, what do you want your audience to do?
Boy, that is a great thought. I mean, most people don't probably think of it that way. I know you and I have both been in Toastmasters, and so often people would give a speech and they would just kind of like to hear themselves talk. And by the time they were done with their speech, you were already in the process of forgetting whatever they said. So it's so important to just help people know what you want them to do with the content that you're giving them, right?
Right. There's statistics, for instance, that when you hear someone speak, you forget 90% of what they said within the first week. Some people forget what's been said before they even walk out the door. It's so unmemorable.
But part of this process, Steve, has probably got to be, what are the ideas that will really motivate them to do this one thing, right?
You got to know what your one thing is, though.
Yeah.
What's the one thing you want them to do? If you're on a sales presentation, do you want them to buy your product? Or do they want you to you want them to have another conversation with you? What do you want them to do when you're done? If you're having a conversation with someone at work and you want them to take on a piece of work, a project or something, what do you want them to do? You have to define that before you start your presentation. So start with the end in mind. What do you want them to do? Because if you don't start with that, you're basically just talking, and people are going to be checking in and checking out and be bored with what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can begin to design the beginning part of your talk, because your beginning and your ending need to be tied together. So you need to get the attention of the audience, you need to introduce the topic, and you need to establish rapport. So let's talk about each of those. How often have you sat in a sales presentation, particularly in a corporate environment, where the first 15 minutes, the presenter is talking about how wonderful their company is, how long they've been in business, who the founder was, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That does not get the attention of your audience.
Boring.
Okay. You want to introduce your topic, and we're going to talk about how to do that in a number of different ways. And you need to establish rapport. And if you can establish rapport, not just rapport, but create an emotional connection in your introduction, you're going to have them far more engaged when you get to your content. Okay? So the next part, you can start your introduction with a rhetorical question. When I was doing training programs on how to interview, I would start my presentation with, ever notice it's getting harder and harder to hire great people? I'd put my hand up in the air and people would raise their hand. What have I done? I've asked a rhetorical question, but what have I done? I've gotten their engagement. They've already started being engaged. So use a rhetorical question. You can arouse suspense and curiosity. Roger, hey, ideas for how to arouse suspense and curiosity.
Well, especially when you've asked them a rhetorical question, bring it into the real life audience. And of course, our body movements, our eyes, everything arouses something within people. And you're then getting them interested. And especially if, you have something that is a little offbeat, then that can get the suspense and curiosity going.
Right. You could also tell a story that's related to your outcome. Let's say you're talking to someone about a piece of software, and you tell them about a customer you've had. And you say, this customer was struggling with these 3 problems, and they didn't know what to do. But you don't tell them the answer yet. You wait till the end of the presentation to tell them the answer or how the outcome took place. You create that suspense. Establish your topic. So in the example that I used with the rhetorical question, anyone here notice that it's getting harder and harder to hire great people? What's the topic? Hiring great people. I've established my topic.
Yeah. People should definitely get that fairly early on, so that if they are interested, it'll pique their interest right off the bat.
Right. So what not to do? Please do not start with a joke, especially a joke that isn't related to your topic. Don't stand up and say, oh, gee, traffic was terrible getting here today. Glad we made it, whatever have you. Or I really enjoy your invitation to come speak to you. Don't open with anything like that. Go right into your question, your beginning. Because all the other stuff just, it deflates from the anticipation of what you're about to say.
Especially if you start talking about yourself. That's the worst. It seems like, you're there to talk about their interests and their needs, and not yours. So don't begin by yakking about, what you did yesterday or whatever.
Right. Okay. You know what your outcome is going to be, what your call to action is. You now have just defined your beginning. Those need to be tied together. There has to be a synergy between the two. So you start, you can refer back to your start at the ending and give your call to action. describe what you think they should be doing. Now, finally, the middle. We have to have the middle part of this. So first thing you should do is pick a memorable phrase that you're going to repeat at least 3 times, probably 4, as you go through your presentation. So let's just say that you have your beginning. It's about who in this group really would like to have a leader worth following. So that's your beginning. So maybe your memorable phrase is going to be, "Are you ready to lead?" And then, or "Are you ready to embrace the future?" Or "Try, try, try." Or "Empathy is the fuel for success." A phrase like that, no more than really 6 words, but something that you can repeat 3, maybe 4 times throughout your presentation, because it gets them thinking, that gives them that memorable phrase that they can take away with them and remember. Now tie your middle presentation to the beginning and the ending. So you have 3 things in your presentation that you're going to talk about, A, B, and C. And let's say you're talking about the leadership thing. Are you ready to lead? Number 1, do this. Are you ready to lead? Number 2, do this. Are you ready to lead? Number 3, do this. Remember, as you end the presentation, the 3 things you need to do are A, B, and C.
And it's interesting, Steve, about 3. There's a magic in 3, not 4, 5, 6, 8. People can easily remember 3.
Right. So that's a simple way to develop a presentation that will actually influence someone to take action.
Well, we hope we've given you some great ideas today. So it's up to you now to go out and implement those ideas. Steve and I have a saying that we've talked about over the years: understand why, commit, and apply. And that can be a phrase for you to take away with this. Understand why you want to do a talk or a presentation this way, go out and commit to doing it this way, and then continue to do it that way and work it with multiple presentations. So understand why, commit, and apply is another phrase that might trigger your memory to do some of these things when you have to do your next presentation.
Terrific, Roger.
Yep. So we hope that you've enjoyed this episode of So What Is Your Point? Please go to our website and also share this podcast with others that you think might benefit from it. So we will look forward to seeing you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.